it's Aislinn here, and this is my October wrap-up and my November TBR video. So I'm just going to jump right into it. I'm going to start off here with the books I read outside of readathons, and then I'll get to the books I read within readathons. So for outside readathons, I finished my big book of the month, which was Angel Bound by Christina Bauer. I actually really enjoyed this book. Considering it's set in hell, it's kind of light, the characters are hilarious, the banter, and it's got some pretty interesting world building going on, so that's a series I'll be continuing on with at some point. I read The Atlantis Gene by A.G. Riddle. It definitely has its strengths in action, so if you're looking for a good kind of action adventure that's got a few twists and turns, a little bit of history in there, kind of a little bit of sci-fi-ish stuff going on in the background without being like really hard sci-fi. It was good. It was certainly entertaining. I don't, regret reading it whatsoever. Then, let's see, I got into Crimson Bound by Rosamund Hodge. And once again, this is the second book I've read from her. The second book I've absolutely loved. I really like how she took the premise of a fairy tale, in this case Red Riding Hood, and she really twisted it on its head and makes it her own, to the point where if you didn't know this was a Red Riding Hood retelling, you probably wouldn't have picked it out, which is kind of my favorite retelling, something that's more of a spiritual like sequel, if you want to say, or it's written in the same spirit of, say, the fairy tale, but without actually just being another rip on the fairy tale. So I'm going to be looking for more of her for sure. And then for the books I read in readathons, I read for Spookathon. Let's start with that one because that was the first readathon of the month. For Spookathon, I read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. I think for its time, it was definitely more of a groundbreaking book than it is now. It is an older book, as I actually found out after I started reading it. It has not aged well. There are certain tropes in there that maybe were socially acceptable back in the 60s when this was written, that now they just make the dialogue and the story seem janky and clunky, or characters just be very irritating, but maybe back then, I don't know, I didn't live back then, maybe that's how protagonists were written. I don't know, but I haven't read too many super old books. But yeah, so my least favorite of the month, but not bad. I mean, it was definitely atmospheric. It did have a few moments where it kind of scared the pants off me, even though I'm a, complete scaredy cat. But yeah, that is what it is. Then I read The Witch's Daughter by Paula Braxton. Now that book was probably my favorite of my Spookathon reads. I really, really enjoyed the overall narrative, but the twisting of history, and not just history, but like an accurate history from what I can tell, with like this modern day story and how these two stories are connecting through this witch who's lived them. And I understand there's a sequel, which I'm probably going to go find at some point. But yeah, I do recommend it. If you like historical fiction, mixed in with a bit of fantasy, and definitely character growth, like seeing the witch's where she started and her character then as a girl, and then how her life has made her the character she is today. That was really interesting. So if you like character books, particularly books with heavy character development, that's one for you. The other one I read for Spookathon was The One by John Mars. Not my usual cup of tea. I definitely like certain storylines more than others. It follows 5 characters, I believe. Yeah, it was good. If you like a little bit of sci-fi with a little bit of twists and turnies, then that is definitely a book for you. So that was it for Spookathon and the books I read outside of readathons. now getting into Dewey's 24-hour readathon, and I actually just posted my wrap-up of that one, so I'll just get very quickly, and I won't really give too many thoughts on this one. I read and finished Fire Sermon by Franziska Haig. I also read and finished volumes 13 and 14 of Black Butler, and I read and finished Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. And this one was probably my favorite book of the month. All right, so we're just going to jump into the November pile now. I have quite a bit of things going on in November, particularly a course that I need to take for work. It's going to take up a lot of my time, so I don't know how much I'm going to get into, but I'm going to see what I can get to. My focus for November is basically my catch-up month. It's the month that I like to pick up all the books that I had started throughout the year and not finished. Either put them down for something else, or forgot about them, or whatever happened. So the first one I want to start with is, and I lost the dust jacket, so I'm just going to get the first page. Heart of Betrayal by Mary E. Pearson. I had started this, I want to say 2 months ago, and I had misplaced it in my house, so only to find it was hiding behind my bed. So yeah, I cleaned up, found it, and thought, well, let's get that finished, because I've been meaning to finish that for a while and just misplaced it. Then I started, and I'm not sure exactly when this was, tells you how long ago, I'm probably going to have to go back to the beginning, Jade City by Fonda Lee. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when I started that, but I don't think I'm far into it. I'll have to check on my Kindle. Earlier this month, I started Rosewater by Tade Thompson. Again, I didn't get far into it, and then got sidetracked with readathons and other stuff going on. But it was really interesting, so I do want to try and get through that one. One I started, I actually think it was last year. It was The Fairy Guardian by Rachel Morgan, which is the first book of Creepy Hollow, Violet's story. And I'm not even really sure why I put that one aside, but maybe I'll remember when I start reading it. But I did, but I kept it on my e-reader, so obviously I intended to go back to it. Usually stuff, if I don't intend to go back to it, I delete it right away. So yeah, gonna try and get to that one. And then of course my big book of the month, which is going to be my primary focus, is Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. I have the audiobook for that as well as the ebooks, so maybe for the audiobook I'll actually get it read. Then with all of that, if there is time, then I will get into A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab and finish off this trilogy. If there's not time, I'll probably move this one to December, but yeah, this is on the bottom of the list, and if there's time to get to it, I will get to it, but I do want to focus on those ones that I've already started. So that, so far, is the November TBR. We'll see at the end of November how well I stick with it. I haven't chosen a readathon yet. With how crazy things are going to be in November, I might just do like a self 24-hour readathon kind of thing, or maybe a self week-long readathon, just to take a break from whatever I'm doing. I don't think I'll actually have time to sit down on a formal readathon, so we'll have to see how that plays out. But that's it for now, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!